So between all of this, Bismarck is a very impressive warship. She's by no means the best battleship of her generation, but she is extremely dangerous.
The German battleship Bismarck lies almost 5 kilometers below the surface in the cold North Atlantic. When she entered service in May 1941, Bismarck represented the Third Reich's goal to control the seas. Her short but intense career ended in one of history's most dramatic naval chases. After she sank HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, British forces hunted her down and sent her to the ocean floor after 2 days of pursuit. For many years, no one knew the wreck's exact location or how such a heavily armored ship was defeated. Now, we have answers. An underwater drone mission to the wreck of Bismarck has finally revealed the last piece of the puzzle. Let's discover the whole truth. Discovery of the wreck. In June 1989, Marine explorer Robert Dwayne Ballard, fresh off his Titanic discovery in 1985, tackled one of history's greatest naval mysteries, the final resting place of the German battleship Bismarck. This mighty vessel, a centerpiece of Hitler's fleet, engaged in a fierce battle with the Royal Navy on May 27, 1941, before disappearing into the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Ballard, representing the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts, aimed to uncover not just the wreckage, but also the circumstances of its demise. Was it destroyed by British artillery, consumed by marine life, or scuttled by its own crew in a final act of defiance? The British had provided rough coordinates, approximately 650 kilometers west of Brest, France. But finding the wreck was a challenge. It rested under nearly 5 kilometers of dark water that obscured sonar signals. Ballard's mission was to locate it and capture detailed images of the wreck with the best technology available, settling any debates. The true star of the expedition was the advanced technology being used, equipment that could impress even today's drone developers. Argo was at the heart of the operation, a towed camera sled designed by Navy experts and Woods Hole scientists. Think of it as an early remotely operated vehicle, ROV, equipped with high-definition video cameras, still cameras, and powerful floodlights to penetrate the darkness. It hovered 50 meters above the ocean floor, trailing behind the research ship Nor on a fiber optic cable, streaming live images and sonar readings back to the surface. Ballard had perfected this technique during the Titanic mission, systematically scanning the ocean floor until the wreckage appeared on their screens. When a target was identified, they would send down Alvin, a 3-seat submersible made from titanium, capable of diving to depths of 4,500 meters, for a closer look. After days of meticulous searching, Argo finally detected signs of twisted steel on the seafloor. On June 8, 1989, they struck gold. The Bismarck lay at a depth of 4,791 meters, exactly where the coordinates predicted, on the southern edge of the mid-Atlantic ridge. The geological location proved intriguing. The wreck was resting on the flank of an ancient volcano, preserved like a time capsule in the ocean's depths. Upright and seemingly at attention, the bow of the Bismarck was raised slightly, as if it had descended gracefully despite the chaos and destruction it had faced. The hull remained largely intact, with the armored structure, a 250-meter-long floating fortress, resting flat on the sea floor, only slightly damaged in its central citadel. However, the stern was missing, completely torn away, and scattered debris across the slope for hundreds of meters. This damage is typical, as the rear suffers more severe impacts and breaks under pressure. Alvin's dives and Argo's scans revealed the true extent of the damage. The superstructure was heavily damaged, with command blisters punctured, upper decks scarred, and gun positions charred from the attacks by the battleships Rodney and King George V. There were 8 significant shell impacts above the waterline, 1 on the starboard side and 7 on the port. Still, these wounds had remained above the floodwater. The armored belt was impressively thick at 320 millimeters, built to withstand heavy artillery, and it mostly remained intact, without any torpedo holes compromising vital areas or munitions. The team collected thousands of photographs, video footage, and sonar maps, valuable resources for historians and marine engineers. The debris field stretched 3 by 5 kilometers, filled with remnants of secondary guns and scraps of plating. The location on a volcanic perch explained the ship's preserved position. It slid gently into the depths without violently collapsing. The wreckage also retained more minor artifacts, pieces of railing and deck relics, providing a snapshot of a World War II capital ship frozen at its sinking, even in the ocean's depths. Subsequent underwater drone missions. Ballard's 1989 discovery was just the beginning. People were eager to unravel the mysteries surrounding the wreck. Fast forward to June 2001. A joint dive by Deep Ocean Expeditions and the Woods Hole crew set out with upgraded remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and mini-subs to uncover what the initial expedition had missed. Marine expert William N. Lang from Woods Hole led the effort, focusing on areas for any new damage. They noted that the superstructure was riddled with shell holes, giving the impression of heavy gunfire, especially on the upper decks, turrets, and bridge areas. In contrast, there were not that many punctures on the sides, and none below the waterline had breached the formidable central armor belt. The lower part of the wreck was clean as a whistle. A significant achievement from that expedition was the creation of a comprehensive debris map. ROV cameras and sonar technology meticulously mapped the area, revealing a jumble of broken struts, loose plating, and fragments that had come off during its descent or from ocean floor impacts. Most of the hull damage was attributed to the impact and sliding down the slope of an undersea volcano, not from battle damage. Although the slope was gentle, the force of the effect twisted the wreck like a tin can. Then in 2002, the drama intensified when James Cameron, yes, that Cameron, arrived for Expedition Bismarck. He combined Hollywood flair with advanced technology. The team used Russian Mir subs, Mir 1 and Mir 2, and agile ROVs to capture the first significant interior shots. Passageways filled with silt, a twisted rudder, a mangled command bridge, and an inner hull warped like wet cardboard. They refined Ballard's initial findings with precise measurements. They identified approximately 719 large-caliber shells from the British battleships Rodney and King George V. Still, they confirmed only 2 full breaches in the 320mm side armor at the locations they could inspect. The lower hull had long and unsightly tears, primarily attributed to the seabed contact and stress from sliding down the slope, not direct hits from torpedoes or shells during the battle. The decks below the armor were crushed to 3 to 4 meters, compressed by sinking and bottom impact, folding like accordions. The exploration didn't end there. Private expeditions and documentary crews continued to utilize sharper sonar, high-definition cameras, and more agile ROVs and autonomous underwater vehicles AUVs. Cameron's 2002 expedition, in particular, marked a leap in technology compared to the 1989 efforts, with more responsive subs and explicit images illuminating the depths. This progress greatly fueled interest in naval archaeology and validated previous findings, adjusting theories on armor integrity, damage assessment, and the tussle between scuttling and shell impacts. So, what did they conclude from these deep dives? The central armor belt remained solid, with near-zero full breaches, aside from the 2 spots noted by Cameron. The superstructure, however, was heavily damaged by shells and gunfire, while the interiors were flooded and collapsed. The slide down from the volcanic perch caused significant gashes, scattering debris throughout the area. But here's the big question. Were the British battleships and torpedoes responsible for the sinking, or did the crew intentionally scuttle the ship in defiance? We'll explore that mystery soon. First, let's rewind and review the chaos for a complete understanding, shall we? How did Bismarck meet her end? Scuttling versus battle damage. The German battleship Bismarck hit the waves on February 14, 1939, and received her official commissioning on August 24, 1940. She was a formidable ship, weighing 41,700 metric tons and armed with 8 15-inch guns capable of firing shells up to 24 miles. Her armor was as thick as a bank vault, designed to challenge the abilities of British naval commanders. Commanded by Captain Ernst Lindemann and Admiral Günther Lütjens, Bismarck set sail in May 1941 for Operation Rheinübung, a Wolfpack raid on Allied convoys in the Atlantic, accompanied by the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen. On the morning of May 24, 1941, northwest of Iceland, Bismarck and Prince Eugen ambushed HMS Hood, the pride of the Royal Navy, along with the newly launched HMS Prince of Wales. At 5:52, the Germans opened fire from a distance of 25,000 yards. Minutes passed, and then Bismarck's powerful guns struck. By 6 a.m., a salvo hit Hood's after magazines, resulting in a catastrophic explosion that caused the battlecruiser to break in half, claiming 1,415 of its 1,418 crew members. The Prince of Wales also hit Bismarck, nicking a fuel tank and reducing her speed to 28 knots, but sustained damage and could not pursue. Lütjens ordered a course change toward French repairs at Saint-Nazaire and released Prince Eugen to continue independently. The British pursued vigorously, and that night, aircraft from HMS Victorious attempted to attack Bismarck, causing minor damage. Bismarck zigzagged and maintained radio silence, evading her pursuers in the vast Atlantic. However, this respite was short-lived. On May 26th, an RAF Catalina spotted her 690 nautical miles west of Brest. That evening, swordfish biplanes from HMS Ark Royal, flying through strong winds and flak, successfully hit Bismarck with a torpedo that jammed her rudder hard to the right at 12 degrees. With her steering incapacitated, Bismarck became vulnerable. Throughout the night, British destroyers harassed her with torpedoes and gunfire, but could not disable her further. At dawn on May 27th, 300 nautical miles west of Brest, the battleships Rodney and King George V, accompanied by cruisers Norfolk and Dorsetshire, closed in. At 8:47, they unleashed a barrage of over 700 heavy shells and torpedoes, severely damaging Bismarck's superstructure, dousing her guns, and igniting fires on her decks. By noon, she was a burning wreck drifting helplessly. At 10:40, Dorsetshire launched 2 more torpedoes that struck Bismarck, causing her to list to port before sinking stern first. Of more than 2,200 crew members, only 114 were rescued by British ships and U-74. Survivors reported that the Germans had prepared for scuttling. Explosives were placed in critical areas with 9-minute fuses. Chief Engineer Gerhard Junak decided to start flooding the ship after the battle was clearly lost. The intention was to avoid capture by the British, opting for scuttling instead. This scenario raised questions about how Bismarck ultimately sank. Ballard's 1989 expedition revealed few breaches below the waterline, and the armor around critical areas remained intact. The superstructure, however, was extensively damaged. While heavy hits had taken their toll, the scuttling operation clinched her fate. An analysis by Garsger and Doolin indicated that the cascade of damage would have eventually sunk her, but the crew's actions accelerated the process. In truth, neither the battle damage nor the scuttling alone caused Bismarck's demise. The British had severely crippled her with the Swordfish torpedo, which wrecked her rudder, followed by the barrage from Rodney and King George V, which caused significant damage and fires. By 9:30, with Lindemann and Lütjens gone, the order was given to set off the charges. Doors were opened, valves were wide, and the scuttling measures were initiated. While the scuttling hastened her sinking, it was likely inevitable, given her critical state. Ballard noted that without the scuttling, Bismarck might have stayed afloat for some time, possibly allowing for a rescue. However, her robust design purchased her crucial time, and her fate was sealed once the interior was breached. The survivor accounts, the wreck's condition, and historical analysis suggest a consensus. The damage ensnared Bismarck, but the crew's actions sealed her fate on their own terms.